Yeah, or do it the other way around. Take that remote out of the back and put the remote in front. Put it in front. Praise.
Like that?
I was going to say, bring it. That works.
Higher?
Works for me.
Higher?
That's good. Now we can easily see it over.
Let me just get.
About to start now.
All right, get going.
Correct. And the contract was last year. It's 0711. Yes, that's yeah. And just come in the front door, go right to the left. It's just the first conference room. Just go to the front door and take a left. That's the first door on the left. Don't touch the fountain. I know you want to touch the fountain. I really want to touch the fountain. Don't touch it. Okay. Don't try it. No, he's like on the way over. He was like, it's not the other place, right? It's not the other place. All right. It's not the other place. All right. Well, I don't have a text start, so I don't have an ETA on him. He will be back, but he knows he's going to be talking like 6 or 7 more hours before this is all over. So, and then DJing with you guys. So I think we're going to go ahead and start with Howard. You guys already met me earlier, and I think you know who I am. Chris Spears. I don't think there's any late arrivals that I saw out there. So we wanted to put some other people up here because, again, the belief is there's one person on this project among like half the people who watch because they only watch my stream and they only see me on the stream and they think I do everything. We have wizardsmoke here. So you guys can actually put a face with him because he's one of those guys who hides in the shadows. So introduce yourself.
All right. Well, I joined the project almost 6 years ago. I'm a programmer, originally hired to work on user interface, so I've done a lot of that over the years, but we're a small team, so we all do kind of a little bit of everything here and there, so it's I've had a lot of work on the server, and a lot of work on different types of systems, like combat and store, tons of other things I can't even remember all right now. So yeah, just continuing to work on whatever's the most pressing thing. So currently working on the decoration palette coming up in this next release. That's
You gotta get done. Good job, Bob.
yes.
Okay, there you go.
Promising sign. There's always things that come that end up popping up, and you're working on different things. But this time it seems like we're doing a good job. Place to get started on some other exciting stuff.
And he lists himself as the first thing he mentions the UI guy, but don't hate him if you don't like the UI because you think it's pretty boring. The thing I'll point out is another one of those like things that we've had that has been really strong. We've never had a problem, which I don't know of any other MMO that has had something is how many Duke bugs have we actually had in 6 years? So we've had a ton of reported Duke bugs that always end up being it was a client error on your side that ended up causing an exception that you lost the item as soon as you left the zone. So this is one guy who is very responsible for that, for a lot of the grading stuff, for a lot of the talking to the server guy who is insanely detail oriented, which is kind of what you need in MMOs. So the fact that the economy has not been
Nice to fish in it.
thank him for that. Don't thank him for the UI. Thank him for being incredibly detail oriented and getting a lot of stuff done. So
Yeah, visuals for the UI pretty much set in stone no matter if you're
yeah, like I said, don't blame him. And also over here, far away from another land.
Bzus, been here since day one. Do all the crafting stuff, pretty much all the stuff Chris didn't have time to. A little bit of programming, a little bit of design, kind of all over the place for whatever needs to be done. Currently, keep the knowledge of all kinds of stuff. So,
Does that include fishing, right?
oh yeah, pretty much.
Oh, good, so I'm gonna talk to you later.
Pretty much there's not an aspect of the game that can get away from me. Some stuff I kind of do 90% of, and some stuff I do 10% of. So pretty much have a hand in a little bit of everything. So excited here to talk about crafting today.
And be nice to him, because again, I think I talked to people on the boat about this last night, but a lot of the stuff that he makes decisions on that you don't like, and I don't like jump in and overrule him, is for a good reason, because you guys badger me, and a lot of times I say, all right, fine, whatever. He's the guy that needs to not say, oh, fine, whatever, because it'll destroy the economy or cause major problems. And
Well,
also,
you're saying he took care of half the economy so that it worked on the server. I took
Yeah.
care of the half so that, we don't check stuff in data-wise.
yeah, and when he said he's been here from day one, that's really true. Like he was here long before me at the company formerly known as Portalarian.
I will say, me and the Portalarian, formerly known as Davos, took a check from Richard and put it in the bank to start the company. We wrote his house, legitimate bank that did that, so.
Cool.
Ain't
Yeah.
happening.
And there was actually talk, you mentioned Portaloons. There was a talk for a while that our premium currency would be called Portaloons. Portaloons or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's a
So
little too power themed.
thankfully that died.
Then we just called each other Portalarians.
Yes, we were Portaloons each other. All right, so we got a list here. If Star were here, he would be driving everything, but he's sitting back, not paying attention, looking at Facebook or something like that. But he's not here, so I'm going to try to drive through here. I'm sure he had a lot more data points than around here. Some of this is kind of some dupes from the stuff we had on the first one. So this is, again, just going over the last 12 months. There's been a ton of changes that he didn't get nearly all the stuff in there. We forget a lot of the changes we make just because we make so many big changes. But again, the fishing phase 2 stuff, this is a lot of stuff that, again, this guy's here primarily so you can have another face up here and he may have something to contribute, but all the fishing stuff is right over there. And you want to talk about, I mentioned yesterday that I call myself a designer on the project, but he's really the designer because he's the data designer. Like for every spreadsheet I have, he has like 100 spreadsheets. And that's a lot of really tedious data entry stuff and ways to figure out how to make that. Like a lot of the stuff he does, he gave up on using Unity to change data a long time ago and just basically edits raw files because it's so much quicker and less tedious. But anyways, fishing phase 2, speaking of a lot of data and we'll touch on a lot of stuff. That was a big thing that I know a lot of people want, and a lot of people, will continue to be a cool thing for years to come, and hopefully we can continue to add some more fish and debates and that type of stuff that's coming up.
Yeah, certainly. That's, there's probably 30 or 35 initial bait types that spec'd out. Probably got half of those. So there's certainly a good 16 of those that will be in the short term. They're already kind of halfway designed. Just kind of have to get in the system. And, one thing with the different fish that we've explored is also kind of different categories of sizes. And, you kind of have the fishing tournaments of certain sizes or related weights. And so just adding another layer of rarity onto that. So it really is kind of the first pass of things to a lot of stuff we can do. We're not necessarily adding water types, we've kind of done that, but we definitely add new fish sizes, certainly new fish and things like that, and more stuff, sort of make fishing more part of the crafting system, as in not just food and a couple other things. So we certainly want to have more armor components, weapon components, and things like that available, and we want to be
So also big changes came up, backslot items, patterns, enchanting, etc. is another thing. Anybody got anything to add on that? I know that's one of those things that for those who didn't follow the whole trail things, a lot of times, again, because we do such a different kind of game development, we sometimes, like ourselves, have to walk back through, and I just walked back through how the backslot thing came up. That was the shroud of the avatar was added to the game, the actual shroud, the cloak, you get to find the quest and get the shroud. And yeah, spoilers, I know, cover your ears. But that was like the first time we had a backslot item with stats. And the original intent was that was going to be a headpiece and not a backslot thing.
I guess it's meant to be both. It's meant to
Yeah.
have both slots, but we didn't have a tag for both slots. Right? So we just assigned one slot.
So yeah, so it got assigned to the back slot, and then suddenly you have the first time ever there's a back slot item, something other than visuals. So that was actually something that's kind of and that was of course a Richard item there, being part of the main storyline, and something he really wanted to have in the back slot, having the stats that are based on the version. But as soon as we had that, of course, then it's like, okay, well now everybody in the game is going to be wearing this cloak and look like, identical twins everywhere they go because they're wearing the same gear, because that's the only thing that actually has the stats to it. So that's kind of what started that ball rolling since we actually got that done. So you guys could have backslot stuff. So Another one that's not up there that is kind of also in the same vein of things we'll probably be adding is the much requested thing that will give some players some more options, but a second ring slot.
Yay.
Just need to figure out where it goes in the UI.
Yes, the UI is actually the challenge on that. All the other stuff is pretty trivial in terms of like, yeah, we already got rings, we just have to have a way to have the second ring slot. But yeah, figuring out where that goes in the UI is the biggest blocker for that. So, but that'll probably happen at some point in the not too distant future. I hope. Somebody's touching nods. Here's one for you, B. Grandmaster enchantments and masterworks.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this stuff is about us kind of going back through and seeing, just ways to extend the crafting system that work well. And, with the fishing, that was kind of one thing, a way we're kind of extend it and add some more recipes and content through there. And with the masterwork enchanting, it was a similar way of just going back through the crafting system a step at a time. Looking at, from gathering to production to refinement and trying to figure out, what aspects from a high level of those worked well, which ones didn't. And so, with the, enchantment and masterwork, we had that random system, which the user didn't necessarily have enough control over, and there wasn't sort of any sort of gameplay there. So when we sort of reworked it to where there's a weighted system where rare ones come up at a certain time, and then common ones come up at a certain time, and then added a way for people to kind of re-roll those. Then we kind of took a subset of the system and tried to create a little game mechanic in and of itself. I think that's kind of what we're trying to do is we go back through these kind of each one step at a time. Now, I feel pretty good about the stuff we've done. At least we add a little bit of power, a little bit of gameplay, a little bit of game mechanic to the masterwork and enchanting. Now, we need to go back on that side and kind of rework toward gems. I think gem slotting, things that stuff unlocks. There certainly are times where people are avoiding to get certain things. I think that's, you want to have a rarity equal value where you can. I think there's situations where there's something that's rare that people are trying to avoid, and we want to fix that. So I feel good about the base level of that. And I think if we move on to something like gathering, which is kind of the next sort of thing that we need to address, some of that is about getting more sort of nodes in the game. The idea with adding more nodes above kind of the 5 that we have right now, and this would be across, we kind of use mining as the initial example because that's kind of the one that's easiest to think about, but it would of course be across the standard nodes. But it would be about adding a node that requires a certain number of markings where you can even attempt to mine it. Because I think throughout, when I go back to saying, there's some things that work well and some things that didn't necessarily work too well. And I think a lot of times in our game when we have these soft limitations to where it allows you to do it, but it gives you a poor chance to do it. So it's like we're trying to tell you to do it, or we allow you to do it, then that's just going to have feedback because you're going to try to do it anyway, and then think that 3% chance is like, oh, you're just going to get lucky. And so I think we kind of need to go back to some of the systems, and I think particularly in the gathering nodes it will work well if we have a node that requires grandmaster mining before you can even attempt to mine it. And then we can sort of start to have those appear in other mines or start to sort of segment off this new kind of tier of crafting that requires grandmaster and then gives you a certain level of base sort of materials, and then also has some new components, new catalyst sort of mixed in there. So that's kind of the direction for extending gathering like that. So and with each one of these, we're trying to go back and look at making sure what do I get out of grandmaster, but making sure that is a binary thing. Because too many of the times, there isn't a binary benefit that you get. It's okay, this goes from this percent to this percent, but what people want is I achieve this grandmaster title. What do I get now? And so, when we went back and did that with grandmaster, we get 100 grandmaster, then these new enchantments show up, and these older ones go away. So that's kind of the idea is we go back through these, try to have these marked levels of like maybe 50, 100, 150, and 200, or at least 50, 100, to where there's an explicit binary difference before and after. So I think with masterwork and enchanting, that works well for, there's a new tier of stuff that gets added. And I think for gathering, it works well when we add a new classification of nodes that give you a lot more, give you unique resources, and then that requires grandmaster. And then the third one is us kind of re-looking at the refining. And I know that we have some skills in there for refinement, but it's kind of the one that sits in the middle between the gathering and production that kind of makes it work. There's definitely some ideas there, but I feel pretty good about the stuff we've done for Grandmaster enchantments and stuff, and the things that we're going to do for gathering moving forward. And then, you know, we have some ideas for refinement, but those are a little further out. But I feel that, you know, adding new node counters to the scenes as we're adding these kind of new scenes is kind of what we need from the starting.
They just won't.
You know, adding new stuff to practice.
Let's see, I'm connected.
A lot of stuff we're doing is almost like setting the runway for adding more content. So, you know, it means how do we extend, you know, the gathering aspect of the game, how do we extend, you know, the production aspect of the game, how do we extend each one of these to where, you know, there's a little runway there. So that's what kind of part of this starts with, what that starts with too. So.
Do I have to stop on Facebook now? Actually, just making notes. For those who didn't know, anybody I've been talking to at lunch or anybody I've been talking to, I've been adding and collecting lots of notes for you guys. So expect to see some of this stuff show up. But another one that happened for this release was pronged weapons. This is kind of a small one, but an interesting one. I've not even checked the metrics to see. Anybody here use pronged weapons?
And it really is just trying to add a new weapon. Trying to add a new weapon. Trying to add a new weapon on top, you know,
Yeah.
pros and cons, but.
One of the reasons I was just thinking about that and I forgot about that being added, but as much as the archers just got screwed here by the recent change to damage absorption with their
I think we're fishing in.
Sorry.
I
don't know why that keeps coming up.
Even harder than
That's
that.
good.
But yeah, I think that's one that needs to go back and we need to take another look at. But of course, the demon trident, and yeah, but. Artifact combining. This is one that I did. Again, this is I continue. For those who don't know, I understand what players want, or at least I believe what players want in terms of a experience, in terms of going out. And it's kind of, you guys want to go out and want to be able to adventure a couple of hours, and at the end of the adventure, you want to feel like you gained something that's an upgrade, or at least a step in the right direction for an upgrade. And I don't think that's one of those things I think we're missing. So the artifact combining is one of those things to try to, it's both a good economy thing, it pulls a lot of the artifacts out of the economy that don't turn into gold. It also gives you something that, like, you know, again, just the way that I have it set up at 4x, it can pull a lot of stuff out of the economy. And then when you go out on the adventure, like, you may find a ring that you really don't care about, but you know there's somebody who cares about that because they're trying to combine it somewhere. So I think that was one of those things that was a big win in terms of giving you guys something to go. And also you can look forward to your legendary, another tier above that coming up here in the not too terribly distant future. Speaking of that, but I know that's been a big hit. Glad that's worked out. Crafting masteries.
And that's kind of the stuff we talked about with Grandmaster enchantment, just kind of adding another sort of game mechanic to that. And I think, like I said, it's more about, what I like about that, it's kind of more about the philosophy of trying to figure out each step of the game and find, make sure there's a game mechanic inside of that, you know, so this is kind of the first one on that. So, you know, as we're looking at the gathering and the refinement, keep trying to keep that in mind, making sure that it's a self-contained little game mechanic with some, you know, randomness or something involved.
The next one up is player-made dungeon encounters. This is another one to pull a lot of resources out of the economy and give you guys something fun to play with, and another one of our small steps towards, you know, make it so you can build your adventure. This is one that's been a little rougher than I like. Again, this is something that had been on largely on me, and I'm always distracted. But again, it's now apparent why I've been more distracted over the last 4 to 6 months than ever before. But that is also one, there's been a couple of encounter rooms been broken. We're going to be fixing those, and we're going to put a lot more polish in these. But hopefully this is going to be an area where we can expand quickly, that we can get a lot more of the encounters in there and tune them up. But again, this is something that was important in terms of not, you know, forget the dungeon encounters, just having the fact that there's essences out there, and when you kill something, you feel like you get something that actually has a value. It's not just, again, the whole rusty spoon thing of, you know, I killed the thing and I got nothing at all. At least in this case, as soon as all creatures have those, you'll have something. And that's, I think we talked earlier a little bit about just having them as, you know, that being the only use. You know, that's cool, but it'd be even cooler if they actually started having some other uses, of like using them for, you know, potion recipes and other things in the game. So you can look forward to that coming in the future as well. Universal Trade Channel. This was a by player demand. I think it's gone pretty well. I mean, I haven't seen it be too terribly spammy. For
No,
those
it's
who
going good.
No, I think it's good.
yeah,
It's going good.
yeah. For those who don't know, that's one of the features that got added recently. Was we have the ability to flag people in the game that we think are responsible players and don't stir too much trouble and have good judgment. We can flag them. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
No one in this room.
neither one of us are on that list.
We can flag them as, give them a special flag, so when they do the report, you can right click on somebody's message and you can report it. They have a different thing. When they report it, they're effectively devoicing that person for 12 hours. And we of course get a little report on it saying, you know, here's what he said and here's the devoice person who devoiced him, so we can kind of take a look just in case. But anyway, so that those people know that's we're probably one of the things we keep looking at is removing you have to buy a universal board for $2 because we would love to do that. That is a really big wall, and a universal channel is really helpful for new players. And we're putting up this ugly paywall of go and enter your credit card information, or God forbid you came from Steam. Now you gotta like connect your Steam account and all your other crap. So we would like to get rid of that silly $2 paywall. That is not there for us to make money. I'm sure like in a total life the project that's accounted for like a hundredth of a percent of our revenue or something like that. That is purely there to keep spammers out there. Since we're a free to play game, you can go make accounts and come in and spam universal. So again, what we really want to do is get rid of that universal org and instead just have it so we have, you know, at any given time we're going to have a half dozen people in game who are flagged and can right click and devoice some people, so when those, you know, those guys show up, you can flag them and we can go and say, okay, great, see who it is, kill them, kill everybody who ever played on a computer, kill everybody who ever played on that IP. But anyway, so the universal trade channel, I've been surprised. It's one of those things I think we're a little reluctant. I know I was a little reluctant to have a universal trade channel, just any universal type channel. But yeah, I think that's gone over well. Teleport to scene scrolls. Again, this has been one of those big things in terms of stuff to craft, and it's another big quality of life thing that I think you guys have really appreciated. We'll be probably cutting into that a little bit because we're adding again some deco stuff that I know some players. This is something that actually came from player feedback. Again, was right now they're pot teleporters. They're big, massive, cool-looking things, but again, those are really for the deco your pot. There's going to be some player lot versions of them that are small and much cheaper type things, but that'll be cutting into into Laz's scene scroll teleporter stuff. So sorry about that, man.
First it was drops. You made them all drops.
Maybe we can get the drops out of there for you as a compromise so your scroll business picks up. But again, this the idea behind these though is again, towns are where you meet in the towns, and then it's really convenient of everybody. Okay, hitting the vendor, hitting the bank, hitting the dropping stuff off my box. Now meet over at the the teleporter to the vault or whatever. So
That's what he's talking about.
those are going in there again. That's one of the things I've had people mention is it was definitely oh yeah, I forgot about that part on those things. Was the humorous thing of you got a starter newbie count and you put a teleporter to the rise in there, and you got newbies teleporting into the middle of the rise with no way to get home. Yes. See?
I have a question.
Okay.
You're bringing up scrolls and Laz's side business and whatnot, and you guys have just now introduced placeable dungeon entrances in POTs and on lots. Is there any type of thought process or anything that in the future, back away from Laz for just a second, that in the future that you may do away with teleport to zone scrolls? The reason I'm asking is because if you've got those dungeon entrances, why would you need to go pay 4,500 quotas when you could get to the dungeon with a teleport zone scroll?
So one of those things we try to do that we don't succeed at 100% is, we try to make sure if there's a way to do something by paying real money, there's a way you can do it in the game. That's one of those, like the teleport scrolls are all in the game and players can get that, and I think people know, at least people in this room are probably rational enough to realize we try not to sell power in any way. We try to sell convenience convenience, we try to sell visuals, we try to sell that stuff. For us, this is one of those things that it was a convenience thing is what we're selling. But I don't think we plan on getting rid of the teleport scrolls, and part of that is also because, you know, we're not gonna add a teleporter to everything. We're probably gonna pick, I made a list of the 10 most frequented areas, and put it out there to the team, and people looked it over. And of course, I think Travis immediately went and deleted upper tiers off and said, you know, F those guys, never send anybody there unless they have to. It's like, it's your zone, you made it. Deal with it. But anyways, yeah, so I think they're both gonna exist. We're not planning on making teleporters everything. We'll make the ones for the popular places. We may make, like, you know, when we add a new dungeon, we're trying to get people to make one. But yeah, I think the teleporter, the other teleport scrolls, because those go to everywhere. And we don't plan on making a dungeon entrance type thing for everywhere.
Right, and these dungeon entrances are only one way.
Where'd you come from?
Yeah, I'm still sitting here. They're only one way, so, you know, you still need a way to get back home. Unless you just want to walk.
We want to ride.
But anyway, so those have been popular, and again, that's, some of that is as much, again, we've been pushing away from the let's make things, focus on making it, you know, painful and immersive at times, and trying to get people trying to accept the reality of it. It's not fun, you know, going to the overworld is great the first, you know, 50 times or whatever, and it's cool to wander around and find stuff out there. You know, and tolerable the first 500 times, and then after that, it's like, oh god, I got to do an extra zone to the overworld, and where's my map, and where's the, so, yeah, again, trying to remove that stuff, the super repetitive stuff, that also makes you hate load times is another thing that it does, so. But anyways, on to the next one there.
Question about your teleporters. Do
Yeah.
they have a weight restriction too?
They use the normal teleporter code, which I believe does have a weight restriction. I'm not certain. That's a good point though. But right now, because they only go from your town to a dungeon, I think they're a little less painful, like a little less exploitable. Like they have them so that you can go from a town to another town, like, you know, moving stuff around. But again, that's one of those things I think we're far less concerned of for a while. We're trying to force these local economies. That's really the real reason for why you don't have those. And I think that's one of those things that we realized we were just, you know, inconveniencing you guys, and it really didn't matter that much. Who's talking?
I am.
But anyway, so that's, I think it's on there. If it's not, I may just leave it alone, just because again, it's not, I don't think it's that big of a deal anymore. Trying to avoid those inconvenient things that we added in for some reason way in the past. And since we're talking about crafting here, and B is here, B, can we remove vegetables from vendors, or increase the price, or decrease the max count?
Killing the farmers.
Yeah, I never wanted them on the merchants.
Yeah.
I never wanted anything that the player could produce on a merchant ever.
Great,
That's totally
great,
wrong.
great.
I'd already theorized that they were put there before we actually had a working farming system.
Well,
and
then
they've
I
never
would
been
remove
moved.
them as we add it, because every time we would add one, I would remove it. But then at one point in time, I guess someone assumed it was not in there. So certainly
That would totally spur our economy.
The other, like you say, the other option is just keep turning up the heat until no one buys them, or just remove them. But certainly, yeah, I mean, I can think, do something about that. I've had a jury related to kind of switching up some of those, so that's certainly something I'll rank a little higher, because, yeah, there's no reason to even have them on merchants like that.
Great. We also had an attendee here earlier had brought up gold and silver scrap.
Oh, yeah.
When can we expect to see that?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that's in there. It's just, yeah, it's just, it doesn't really affect as many items, so it'll definitely get in there. I get that people think it's gonna change their role, but probably won't change their role as much as you think. But it certainly, actually, I've been reworking some stuff related to that, making sure it can't be super exploitable, like this last release. So I have some data related to that. So I have done a lot of work getting that closer to the finish line, because a lot of people aren't very passionate about it, so.
And as I mentioned, you guys badgered me and all of you go, yeah, okay, whatever, I'll do it. And it's his job to not be badgered by you guys too much. So
Right.
that's why I said I almost wish I had a cardboard cutout of me up here you guys could just talk to, so you even feel like you're
So, but the gold scrap is certainly something that, like I said, specifically, I've almost checked it in last week, so just one or two things I wanted to check on, so.
So what about things that don't have a use that are crafting, that are listed as a raw material, like the emerald, ashmore?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much all those are, related to as we extend the runway of crafting, figure out how those interface with that in a way that the value can be maintained. Because a lot of those things, why they haven't been sort of addressed is because any output of them will have to equal the value of them, otherwise you're not going to do it, And so those are particularly valuable. So we kind of have to figure out, that's why we haven't done a quick solution, because the quick solution would be, here's the use for this. Oh, well, no one would ever do that because this thing's worth 200 gold, basically, right? And so try to figure out a way, as we add kind of another tier of stuff that kind of has more value to it, a way to have it interface with that so that we get kind of some value out of that. But those were originally kind of designed for another tier of metals that we cut at the last second. But they will be part of, kind of integrated into kind of the next layer of crafting. So they certainly will have this.
Well, and then I guess earlier, I'm not smart enough.
We had discussed the crafting vendors and trying to reduce mouse clicks, so like white pearls that you cannot find. You have to just go through this endless loop of opening the vendor, hitting buy, maxing out the number, switching it over, clicking purchase, opening the vendor, maxing out, switching it over, completing the purchase, on and on to get it a higher volume. If you're a crafter, can you raise the limits of what the actual, instead of 1,000 on crafting vendor? Because if you want to buy 5,000, why shouldn't you just buy it?
You're going to talk about specifically which merchant, because we go through and, change stuff on, like, adding the seeds to 100,000 or a trillion or whatever, right? Except because
Reagents.
Reagents.
That's a big one.
Crafting.
I mean, those are already, what, 10,000 or?
1,000.
1,000, 1,000.
Or less.
Well, there are some odd ones like 1,400 or something.
Well, I mean, here's the frustration, like, from a developer's perspective. A number is there because those were supposed to run out. And so now we have a situation where there's a number there that no one wants, right? There's a number there that if you, like I said, if you, talk to the guy who buy it, and talk to him again, it refreshes. And like, so that number's almost there as a need to kind of refresh, but like, I don't want that number there. I want you to buy as many as you can.
Right.
But that number there is to refresh, so it's like, but it's like, I think whenever we suggested every merchant have unlimited of everything, then they got poo-pooed of like, oh, well, you can't do that. So it has a number, so that it's realistic, only to screw both of us, basically.
Bzus, one thing that I want to bring to your attention is that you've set some of the numbers at 100,000, but you can't buy 100,000 because you max out at 32,000 because your weight maxes out.
Oh, well, I mean, sure, that's a separate thing. I mean, we could somehow look at the weight and max stuff, but yeah, I mean, it's, it's like, if it's one, it's just.
32,767.
762,767. There's certainly a limitation on there, it's a numeric limit that just makes everyone frustrated.
So the weight limit thing, it's just logistics. You're going to go from the crafting vendor that you don't have sitting in your house necessarily. Most of the people here probably don't. So then you got to waddle across town with it, drop it off, and then come back and go click, open, transfer, click, open, transfer. You just want to have like a week's worth of stuff.
I mean, that's one thing, that's what I originally worked on, and a lot of these things were issues of people don't like the numbers get that high, but then the numbers do get that high, so what do you do? I mean, I originally had a thing of like, a bundle of reagents that was cheaper. So it's like, hey, I want to buy 10,000 of every reagent in a box and charge me 10% less, because I'm buying, some sort of quantity thing, or at least 1% less or whatever, the same price, just so you don't have to go and do that. But I think, a lot of those were kind of come up against kind of reality things. But certainly, if the core reagents are, if outside of increasing the base number doesn't do it, I'm totally fine for introducing something called, the super mega, reagent bundle that's 10,000 every base reagent, or whatever, some sort of number, so that, you can, maximize that. But I think a lot of it's going to be in kind of what we offer you than necessarily in the interface. But certainly the number is the thing that I can fix.
The
short term.
fuels are the same with callables
Sure.
or whatever.
Yeah, so I mean, that's, I'm kind of going back through, kind of set some of those numbers, but it's this weird thing of like, it's like if I set them too high, people are like, oh, it looks weird when there's 999 here, but then it's like if I set them too low, it's like, that's not enough. So it's like, it's weird back and forth.
So the other thing earlier, I guess last night, maybe we discussed it briefly, and Chris directed me to ask you when you came, was essences and the use of them. We talked about arcane catalysts because, some of us have massive quantities of those things. We can only turn it into that. You could make something craftable with that. That would be awesome. But essences, if all the main creatures, dragons and demons and everything, dropped essence, and you could make specialized weaponry and armor from the essences, that would really be a boon to all crafters, I think. And it would drive the economy where, people would have more to sell because you would have specialized situational equipment.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if we add more, extending crafting and adding more stuff to drops helps a lot. I mean, the key is, how much does that take, how much data, extending it. But certainly, creatures dropping more stuff that synchronizes with the crafting system in that way. Because, I mean, really the thing is you kill these guys enough that you don't care about the other stuff they drop, right? You don't want any experience. You don't want any gold, right? And so it's like you have to add something new. So it's, and even if it was equipment, you probably don't need that either. So it kind of is.
Well, the essences would give you the ability to, per creature.
Right.
Well, this is
not going on to the audio, if anybody's going to watch it later.
So with the essences specifically, if you've already got it built in, I have thousands of essences. Already got a dungeon that I built, and there's not much use for the essences if I'm happy with the dungeon I have per se.
Sure.
So this gives you that ongoing ability to expand crafting and make situational armor, because I think that's really something that would just be a huge boon for crafters. Is having specialized equipment that's essence based. You've already kind of got the mechanics of it.
There's some of those tech side of stuff that's missing, but certainly I think that the higher level thing is that you want to figure out this go between how dungeons interface with sort of the gameplay environment, right? And so you want an ability to go out and adventure and get a certain resource and come back and put it in your dungeon, and you get another resource kind of creature dungeon. So we've certainly talked about that. I think you have to be careful with these where they're kind of cross-pollinating back and forth too much, because it kind of just becomes a mess. And I think so with some of these sort of currencies, you have to kind of keep them separate. So a lot of it is, I think, how do I go to the adventure world and then have something valuable I need for my dungeon, and then how can I create something in my dungeon that people from the adventure world need, sort of thing like that. And that's kind of what you're hinting at, basically, like some value there, so that you have a reason to go back and forth.
Right. Well, it seems logical too, just in a role play sense, even, because you're strengthening your abilities against a creature by taking its essence.
Sure. So, yeah, there's a lot of balance things on that side when that kind of damage spike like that, according to what we define that as. But certainly you want to have strong links between those two things.
I'll stop that.
And I can also see something to consume some of those if you have spares of, like I was saying before, like having a poison that you can craft.
Yeah.
That is, hey, guess what? 100 dragon essences, or whatever essences you can craft a potion of whatever sling. When you use that poison, it then it's a really easy tech thing that already exists. If we can have a poison that is only does X time against anything, but then it does X times 5 against whatever you crafted it for, and making it something you apply so it's temporary. That's again, crafting items is one thing, but again, I really like consumables in terms of just how much it has the potential to remove from the economy, and it also is one of those things too that it's more flexible for you, because then you can just have your sword, but then you also like, okay, well, I got a couple extra potions down at the bottom that I'm going to be going to kobolds. I'm going to throw down a kobold poison down there at the bottom. So, but that type of stuff would be again easy to do, and would help consume a lot of those and make them feel like they're more useful too. And then also, again, as we're adding in more and more high-end combat or content, there's actually like a real reason, like, hey, guess what, if we had a new bolt boss in there that nobody can kill, like, guess what, you better go, everybody at the party, step one is craft all your bolt potions, so. Good stuff. Let's see, back to the list.
Well, one more, sorry. Applying patterns to artifacts. Can we please be able to do that, so we don't all wear capital suits?
Well, I mean, there's artifacts and there's the crafting system. You know, they were kind of made in parallel and they don't sort of interface for a reason. And so, I mean, there's a very valid reason why you only apply patterns to.
But now they show your name and it's crafted by. So if I make a legendary, lich shirt, which I have, it says my name that I made it, so technically I crafted it.
Yeah, I mean, not really. I mean, that's not the way it works behind the scenes.
Okay.
I'm just saying you can look at artifacts and the crafting system as a
I'm
parallel
not
system,
a programmer or developer.
basically. And,
Yeah,
and there are some times whenever that stuff just doesn't cross like that, you know.
That's my fault, by the way.
Okay.
And again, that was me trying to come up with ways, trying to probably just B's done an amazing job with the crafting system, there's no doubt at all about that, but I think kind of one of the underlying principles we had was one that probably should have been questioned a little bit more, which is the best items in the game are purely crafted stuff, and I felt like that was one I got from you guys over and over again, was that's cool, but we hate it, and we actually want something, we want some more uniqueness. And I think that's something that's shown in other games. Like, we want to be able to go out and actually find stuff that drops, and I want it then, and I want to be able to wear it back and do stuff with it. So, again, the artifacts going in, but they are, like Pete said, they're kind of on a parallel track in a lot of ways. There's some of those we could probably go in and hand fix ourselves. That would be probably tedious and a lot of data work to do, but yeah.
But certainly what you've mentioned is something that, I look at how to combine these systems and sort of take the strengths of both of them and figure out how to make it more clear to you. Because while there are these two paths, it does, from a user perspective, there's a lot of reasons of like, why can't I do this? And it's not sort of called out clearly in kind of the interface. So from a user perspective, it makes sense why someone would want to do that, because we didn't make it clear enough the reasons why. So that's certainly combining those systems and making sure that they play off each other is, kind of a long-term goal, but it's about every step of the way trying to steer them a step closer instead of a step further away. And I think with the combining and some of the other stuff that we're kind of going to do with components later, I can kind of see that. So, a lot of it is this stuff was done to kind of directly help drops in a way that people are used to in games. And so I think we need to sort of, get our components dropping in a similar valuable fashion, and then figure out a way that those can kind of play with each other.
All right, and the last thing, again, for 12-month highlights was just lowering property tax. This is one of those things that we felt.
Thank you, sir.
The property taxes don't actually consume a big chunk of the economy, but they do turn off a lot of the lower level people and then discourage people from having homes. I think the reason we kept them higher than they probably should have been for as long as we did lowering them was just we're trying to make sure the tax-free stuff felt like it had more value. But that was one that I think was costing us a lot of players not wanting to have housing because they felt they were being, they were living in the poorhouse all the time because they were trying to pay their taxes. So that's one that we looked at and we tried to evaluate, like how much is actually impacting the economy and how much can we lower it and still make it feel like tax-free stuff has value to it. And that's,
I checked with you and you said yes, I did.
Really the place we tried to really push it down.
Talk about it.
Stuff like the row house. Which we're trying to get people into the game, and like we give you a row house, then they get there and they can't afford their own house. And that's kind of one of those things that is painful for new players, especially is if they get evicted from their houses. Like that's potentially a game, rage quit and never come back. That kind of stuff. Making that a lot more friendly was important to us. Let's see, 2020 crafting highlights. Let's see, so we have trophy data. B, you're gonna have to look at this. I'm not sure how much of this stuff you know about or just have the jeers on and have not really.
Probably I wish I didn't know about it. It's more than I do don't know about it. Basically, a lot of the trophy data stuff, nobody talked about this for a while, because, the thing we did with the fishing is a generic system. where when you catch something, you know, it has a weight, it has a size, and kind of has a rarity associated. And then apply that same thing to creature heads in agriculture, to be able to get different sized pumpkins, different sized heads. So, you know, most of that tech is there. It's just going back and adjusting every single one of the decorations that's associated with this. I mean, the long-term goal is to be able to make, to have contests with each one of these. We have a system that with randomness associated with them, you know, some sort of achievement in the fishing, and we can do the same thing with each one of these. So I think as we add these, it's going to be fun to see, you know, how can we create an environment or create some sort of time-based in an hour, which you could do some of these or in maybe a different time frame. Like that's why I like the fishing thing, because it's a shorter term. Maybe the agriculture we do a longer term thing, but each one of these is trying to find, you know, some way that the players themselves can run a tournament, because we're putting a timestamp and then a number that is associated kind of with the rarity of the item. So then there's some sort of game mechanic there as far as with the creature heads and agriculture. Because some of the creature heads we'll have to see, because it's going to, you know, have variable size. So, you know, we'll go back and have different sized heads dropped on more difficult creatures with different colors like that. So when there is the higher tier polar bear is going to drop sort of the biggest, you know, polar bear head. So things of that nature. So excited about that. Daunting amount of data, but I feel like we at least proved it with fishing, and I don't think it'll be as much extra data. It's just a lot of visual data. The fishing took a lot of loop data, loop tables, a lot of work there, how it interfaces with bait, but these shouldn't be that bad, at least from the prefab perspective. So thinking about it again, you know, I feel good about those, at least how they fit into design. We just got to find the right time to do them.
Yeah, having the sizes on thing really is something that I like, because I think I mentioned before, there's that whole challenge of rarity. Probably about every third time a player talks to me, they're like, make item X drop 10 times as much. And it's one of those things, it's like, no, because then it wouldn't be as cool. Well, this gives us thing we could have things drop more, but guess what? You're going to keep doing it, because that's what we really want you to do, is keep doing it. We want you to get your thing and be done with it. With this, it's no longer a binary, I got it, I don't got it. It's, you know, there can be sizes involved, so it'll keep you guys going, and no reason to keep trying to get a bigger one.
Yeah, and when we did that original system, Joaquin worked on it, and we worked hard to make it generic, so I think probably 95% of the stuff's there. There's probably one or two things I'm not thinking about, but for the most part, you know, it shouldn't be too bad. So certainly something I'll have most of the spec out. When you go back and use it. I've done some of the stuff that extend the fishing and have some of that data spec out to kind of test that, but we'll go back and see. I have a couple pieces, but go back and explain them.
Yeah, that was a fun thing that he and I worked on. It was several months ago.
Yeah.
I know there's three people who said they weren't going to
Relatively
show
light
up.
on that, almost, you know, the main things we had that took time were just like talking through it all, and making sure that we, you know, doctor goals for issues that are not across, you know, the best ways for these to be able to like set up the data and stuff. So it's been, you know, the tech's been sitting there just like really says just like a lot of data.
He's not here yet.
And the good
If
thing
he's
is,
coming.
there's already works for leaderboards.
I don't know.
and stuff, right? We already have fishing for leaderboards, so extend this, just another data field.
Right.
You know, extend some more leaderboards, so at least we feel like this can come pretty fast. So,
Right.
certainly sooner rather than later, in the sense that it leverages a lot of technology that we know works and works well, and gets leaderboards out there and adds, you know, a rarity to number, you know, size value sort of thing.
As far as pushing out data for items, is there any way, one of the things I really love about the game is going through and seeing all the different creative people who make these beautiful heraldry. Is there any way on a mouse over on the heraldry we can see whose heraldry that is? Yeah, because I walk through towns and see this most beautiful work. It's like, oh, who's that?
Yeah, you want the heraldry to be an advertisement for the person, and you put it out for a reason.
Yeah. I would love to be able to see whose heraldry it is, not who crafted the banner, you know, but there's no heraldry.
Is that not the same person?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Oh, because you can change. Yeah, we'll get looking at that. It's definitely not, the data's not there right now, but we could
just have like one village lot. But one of the things that the game that really bugs me is schlepping around buckets of water. And especially when it's raining in my town. And my things are outdoors and they don't get watered. It'd be nice if it rains and it would water my plants. It'd also be nice to have a greenhouse that's like, it's irrigated somehow, that I don't have to worry about the watering thing. Like maybe a more expensive greenhouse that would water it. And also the other thing is I know that there's a limit on the number of lights and the number of items outside for a reason, for loading and everything. It'd be nice if you could add something like you do the dungeon, where you might be able to add a few more lights or add a few more outside deco spots. Like you add points to your dungeon, you can add points to your property. Within a limit to maybe add 2 more lights or 3 more lights. It's irritating. You want to just put that one last thing there and you can't.
Yeah, on the rain in pots, not watering your plants, that's one of those things where trying to make it feel like it's actual weather just doesn't work. That colliding with the game system of agriculture, it just doesn't work for a number of reasons. Some of it's just like the server's not paying attention to updating weather on an area unless there's people in that area. That's one thing we try to keep our servers able to handle that crazy amount of stuff, which means we try to avoid simulating everything in the universe unless there's actually a good reason to. And that's one of those things we probably end up having to simulate what's going on there. But also, we would have to make it rain very rarely, and it would it's not worth it to have that. And having the buckets and water is kind of one of those things where we try to figure out costs for things. And sometimes that cost is time, and sometimes that cost is gold. And that's just one that it's been a tough one to balance. I know it's a very tedious thing for people. I think it's also one of those things where we were kind of caught by surprise, where we expected people probably grow 50 mandrakes or whatever so they can save on reagents or whatever. And then we walk into towns and it's like, oh look, there's a whole city lot where he's got pillars stacked and crab in 7 layers and the whole damn thing all the way to the sky with water crab, and we're trying to good God, and it's like, who's shocked that he's going to complain about something's tedious and I have to collect, because that's one of those things we probably should have said immediately, what's going on when people were complaining. It's like, can you fix the water? I hate having to collect 10,000 water. It's like, Jesus Christ, why are you collecting 10,000 water? I should have stopped right there.
No, I remember the specific design discussion when it was like, okay, you don't want to limit these. Like, you don't want the skill to limit the amount players can have. No. I was like, okay. And then I basically had to go back and balance it. That's the problem with agriculture. It's like, I don't know of a game that has a system that has money and skills associated, but something that's uncapped like that. So anytime there is a tiny little variance, you times it by, unlimited. So, that's why the agriculture is very, very fragile in a sense. These margins are very, very tiny, or you have to sort of look at it like that, because, a tiny little adjustment can flip it over to the point that, it's the boat sinks effectively, right? So, and I get the fact that there's time involved and there's all these other things, but, it's certainly, an interesting thing with that design system that it is uncapped effectively if you're in your own kind of environment.
So I have just an odd question, and I imagine most of the people here run into it, but maybe not. It's, you're overweight because you're crafting. So I'm just kind of a beach bum when it comes to it. I put everything in a bag, bam, it goes into my inventory. And I hate, number one, that byproducts and stuff don't go back into the place that they came from, even if you've got a stack already. It goes into your regular inventory, so you've got to sort it all out and grab it. But you can actually get a trade from a player for an item that weighs at 0, and you weigh too much. It will not let you take an item for 0. But I can go back and off a vendor buy another 1,000 coin if I want to. And I don't understand the mechanics of that.
I can explain why that came about.
Okay.
That's kind of one of those things. There's a lot of design, systems, assuming as Vito was saying, that we assume there's limits to things.
So that's another uncapped system.
And as soon as you have players can start trading infinite amounts, again, you start talking about when we look at things, we're looking at like, okay, well, we know the value, proposition for this is whatever times X. Well, when X approaches infinity, there's not a way to design a system. I mean, everything we have to like design around that infinity system is there, and that's when we're trying to block that. And there were a bunch of things where players were using basically mules who carried an infinite amount of stuff because they were just always overloaded. And you could always trade with them. So it's like that dude was carrying 400,000 weight, but he just stood right by the whatever place, the crafting place or whatever, and they didn't care. And that's just okay. Well, he's like basically an infinite chest because I can always trade. So that's where that came about, was the trading stuff. So I can tell you when that happened.
Not only in crafting, but in like adventure areas where the gathering loot and offloading to a mule character. So they can trade all they want to a mule character, then they can always just be light and just sit there and loot all day, with just mule character carrying all the weight. So that's another reason why.
But even an item that weighs 0?
I mean,
Yeah, we don't special case test for 0 weight things.
I mean, really you have to look at it from a perspective of, what MMO has an inventory system that's not spatially based, it's not spatially based, right? I mean, in ours, it's all this number, and then so you also have this weird situation where then you get this thing where quest items all of a sudden, like they don't weigh anything, and they don't count as an item, like they're in your inventory. So it's like they're in this little nebulous world because we don't actually know them count. Whenever normally when you have some, like Diablo or some spatial-based system, either, one to one or one to many.
It just seemed inconsistent. I don't want you to change something to make it worse on people, but you can take something out of a box, but you can't take it from another player. So that's what doesn't logically make sense. You can take something that weighs another 100 weight out of a box or a chest, but you can't take the frame for a 0 weight item.
It's the difference of, your inventory versus someone else's.
And again, some of these things evolved where they are, and it was multiple things that led up to it. For a long time, one of the things we were fighting with, again, when we were trying to deal with people like botting and mines and stuff like that, and trying to look into those things, there's a lot of stuff. The usual thing I always point out is a lot of these designs, it's like, why would you guys do this? And it's kind of the, this is why we can't have nice things type thing. And there's somebody who was exploiting the crap out of it. And like, for a long time, one of the things we were fighting against were the ghost truckers and these other things, which was the ghost truckers, was people had found that they could always carry an infinite amount of stuff. All they had to do was die and become a ghost. And then they can walk around as a ghost, and they're never blocked as walking around as a ghost because they're carrying an infinite amount of stuff. And that's where we started looking at, okay, what are people doing? Oh my goodness, people are in the dungeons mining, 10 bazillion ore, and then they send down a guy who, immediately life packs himself to death, and then ghost truckers it to the exit.
Why don't people just carry around the remote banks?
You can't place it.
Oh,
What if you're in a
You can't
town
access it in your chest.
or on your lot,
bag.
and you make it where the
Okay.
coding doesn't apply if you're on your own lot?
Right, but not in the
It's
dungeon.
just bad.
And that's one of the
It's
I'm
like-
getting,
Well,
well,
if somebody
I
comes
dropped
running
it,
into
so
town
that's
to
why I
deliver
never-
something,
never
then
really.
it's, oh crap, I'm overweight. I have to now go back inside, go down into the basement, unload all my stuff, go back.
Yeah, and I don't remember the exact progression. I know for a while we had that because I think maybe the Deco Divas were frustrated with wanting to be able to carry infinite amounts of weight around and stuff. I don't remember the exact progression of how we got to exactly where we are right now. That's probably something worth at least looking at. But again, it is something that was not just a arbitrary, let's do this thing. It was decisions led to it. And maybe the end result wasn't exactly the right thing, but again, it was probably a combination of things that led us to where we are right now. And I know some of the stuff I just described and Joaquin was describing, guys in mines who are sitting around there macroing and sending down their slaves down there to carry an infinite amount of crap out for them. Was definitely one of the big ones that we looked at.
Also, when you're on a lot, you do have some other tools at your disposal to get around that kind of stuff.
You do, yeah.
For instance, you could put down a chest that that allows people to put things in and not take it out, things like that. So, in situations like that where there might be something that's kind of inconvenient, but it's very difficult to just solve on like a broad scale of the game because you have to account for all the different scenarios that might be exploited in. Those kind of things we try to like let you guys just like find ways around and do that instead of putting a lot of time into something little like that, and instead of putting time into
I was just surprised with the something in League Zero that could take.
I totally understand that.
Yeah.
Like, on the surface, it just seems like why would you do that?
Right.
But
But I've seen
like Chris
that
said, we can take
exploitation.
another look at it and see if there's something that we can do to make that a little bit easier.
If you craft with a partner a lot, it's just like, oh God, we gotta go back over here, put stuff in the box.
Right.
All right, well, I'm gonna try to get through the rest of this. Again, we're gonna be here, we've got like 4 or 5 more hours of talking up here that you guys could ask us some Q&A, and I didn't get through the only 2 pages that Star set up for us and didn't show up for his talk. He'll be back shortly, let's see, other stuff for 2020 highlights, the player vendor UI polish that went in. Of course, Mr. UI guy right here. Any feedback on that, comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, player vendor UI polish is something that we've gotten a lot of feedback from players about, and just, we have some kind of ideas that we'd like to get done. Just it's always kind of been right on the edge of like, is this important enough to do right now at this moment? And there's as you know, we're a small team, so we're always juggling all these different things that we'd like to do, but at some point we have to make a decision about what's most important. So this is one thing that is like, yeah, we'd really like to do this, but there's always been other things that have been higher priority at the moment. So something that is on our radar, has been on our radar for a long time, and there's tons of ideas out there, ways that we can improve it. We've got a lot of great feedback and suggestions from players. We have some ideas of our own as well. So this is something that we're hoping to come back around to the coming year and finally get around to addressing, making that a little bit friendlier for players, especially when you're trying to like share a vendor with other people on the quad, or there's like a lot of different situations where currently it's just not that easy to use a vendor.
And I think I mentioned to people on the cruise last night, just to freak Joaquin out here, about the opportunities that are available with Lua and things that we can do once Lua's in place. If we have a way when you talk to him, you can do the command, will show you basically just dump all the items that are on it. It's even comma separated type stuff, and make that so it dumps into Lua, and then Lua can actually read that stuff, so you can actually do a Lua plugin if it don't go in and dump your entire inventory from your trader to a Google spreadsheet type thing to see that type of information. That's the type of stuff that I expect to be unlocked with Lua. Now, the freaking out part is making it so you can manage on a spreadsheet and then go back in, pull it back into your Lua, pull it back into your vendor so you can go manage all of your vendor stuff.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, the Lua thing is it sounds really cool, and there's a lot to kind of think through with that. But I'm definitely all for any kind of tools that we can give players to make things easier for themselves. That they can actually develop tools for themselves. That because often we're like creating these interfaces. We're just like trying to do our best to like fit the needs of like everybody all at once. But a lot of times players have like very specific things they're trying to do. So like in a lot of cases, players can create their own tools to do some of those things that they're going to do a better job than we can. And so any time we can kind of expose things to allow players to do things in a way that works for them is a good idea.
So on just like all the stuff that I own a character, is there gonna be any way to find it at some point? I know where it is and, I mean, I have
Universal
all
logic,
these
find your
boxes
green.
in multiple homes and, you know, where is that darn whatever it is? You know, and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, we've already overextended on this album.
It says to 2:15 on my thing. All right, well, the things that are remaining on here anyways were the item history, item leveling, pet leveling, skills, customization. These things Star already talked about a little bit, so we're probably fine and we can catch up on Q&A on stuff later because everything has overlaps. But
Sounds good, awesome. Guys, we're gonna go ahead and break till about 2:30 or so. Maybe probably, since we ran over, probably about 2:40. And then we'll come back in for the next panel. Thank you both. Thank all three of you for being here and answering questions for the audience.
Thanks, Don.
Pleasure.